Learn something new today, the simulation matrix explored. The idea that we might be living in a simulation, often called the simulation hypothesis, has fascinated philosophers, scientists, and even technologists for years. The basic premise suggests that if a highly advanced civilization had the ability to simulate entire universes with complex consciousness, then our reality could be one of those simulations. Today we will explore some of those ideas and more, and maybe get some answers. So that if we are living in a simulation, there would be a few speculative ways we might be able to detect it. Detecting the variables within the matrix in a simulation, just like in a computer program, you might expect occasional bugs or glitches. People sometimes point to déjà vu, odd coincidences, or unexplainable phenomena as potential glitches in the matrix. While this is more anecdotal and speculative, it's a popular idea in simulation theory discussions. The limits of reality. There might be fundamental limits to the universe's resolution, like how a video game has pixelation or a finite number of objects it can render. The Planck length, the smallest measurable length in physics, or the discrete nature of quantum mechanics could hint at a resolution limit of our universe, much like pixels in a digital image. Looking for mathematical patterns, some would argue that the universe is highly mathematical in nature. Everything from the behavior of subatomic particles to the large-scale structure of the cosmos can be described using mathematical equations. If reality can be boiled down to a series of algorithms or mathematical rules, it might suggest an underlying code, akin to a computer simulation. Consciousness and perception. Another possibility is that consciousness itself is the product of a simulation. If we were to create artificial intelligence in simulations, the AI might not know it was simulated, just as we may not know. The question then becomes, can we ever prove we're not just programmed beings? Unexplained phenomena. As if there were things in nature that completely defied our understanding of physics and couldn't be reconciled with any natural laws, some might argue that those could be signs of something outside the simulation or errors in the code. So far, there's no definitive evidence for or against the simulation hypothesis. In quantum physics, this concept suggests that the mere act of observing a phenomenon can change the outcome of that phenomenon. This idea is mind-blowing because it challenges our usual understanding of reality. Specifically, that things are happening independently of whether we are observing them. Double-slit experiment. Scientists shoot particles, like electrons, through two slits onto a screen. If no one watches which slit the particle goes through, the particle behaves like a wave, and you get an interference pattern, like ripples in water. This suggests the particle went through both slits at once, like a wave would. When observed, however, when scientists set up a detector to observe which slit the particle goes through, the particle behaves like a solid object, going through one slit only, and the interference pattern disappears. Just observing it changed its behavior. It no longer behaves like a wave but instead like a particle. The idea that reality is influenced by whether or not it's being observed is deeply puzzling and could explain what you saw above with the double-slit experiment. It hints at the strange nature of reality at very small scales, quantum level, but whether this scales up to larger objects like bowls is a whole different question, which is not being shown to us at this time in 2024. How you could connect all the information I have presented to the simulation theory. The role of consciousness. Some truthers have speculated that the observer effect might be evidence that consciousness plays a fundamental role in shaping reality. If reality knows whether it's being observed, could that mean it's responding to some underlying code that adjusts based on the presence of an observer? This idea aligns with the simulation hypothesis, where the simulation adjusts based on user input, just like a video game renders only the parts of the world you're looking at to save processing power. Information is fundamental. Some scientists and physicists, like John Archibald Wheeler, have proposed that at the most basic level, the universe is made of information, not matter. This idea is often summed up as the notion that everything in the universe emerges from binary information, like the code that runs a simulation. If the universe is fundamentally information-based, then perhaps our reality really is a kind of simulation. Quantum entanglement. Another fascinating quantum phenomenon is entanglement. When two particles become entangled, their states are linked, no matter how far apart they are. Changing one instantly changes the other, even across vast distances. This spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it, could be seen as further evidence that the universe operates in a way that mirrors a complex program where everything is interconnected. Could these clues help solve the question you are looking for? The observer effect, quantum entanglement, and other strange phenomena like wave-particle Duality open up profound questions about the nature of reality and how we might interact with it. While they don't prove we're in a simulation, they suggest that reality might be far weirder and more information-based than we typically think. Some additional ideas that might help us open doors to more questions or experiments or possible answers exploring the limits of reality. As technology advances, especially in fields like quantum computing or AI, we might develop or be given access to better tools to test the boundaries of what's possible in our reality. If we can simulate conscious beings ourselves, we might learn more about whether we are simulated. Searching for a backdoor or code, some truthers believe that if we are in a simulation, there might be subtle clues hidden in the laws of physics or cosmology. Perhaps some constants in physics, like the speed of light or Planck's constant, are limitations imposed by the code of the simulation. Philosophical and ethical implications. What would it mean for free will, for the meaning of life, or for morality if we are in a simulation? Thinking about the implications could raise new questions about how we live and interact with this potential reality. The mystery is wide open, and while we may not have definitive answers yet, exploring these strange experiments and phenomena can lead us down some very exciting and thought-provoking paths. What did you think of the experiment with the ball? Is it something that left you questioning how much we know about our reality? It's possible consciousness is separate from the body consciousness, and the body is a vessel. The idea that consciousness might be separate from the body and that the body is simply a vessel for interacting with reality is a concept with deep roots in philosophy, spirituality, and even some scientific discussions. This concept, often linked to dualism, suggests that consciousness, or the mind, and the physical body are two distinct entities. Consciousness as non-physical dualism. The idea that consciousness is separate from the body is often associated with dualism. In this view, the mind or consciousness is an immaterial entity that interacts with the physical body. The philosopher René Descartes famously said, "I think therefore I am," suggesting that thinking or consciousness was proof of existence regardless of the state of the body. Descartes proposed that the mind and body are distinct, and the body serves as a kind of interface through which consciousness interacts with the physical world. Out-of-body experiences, OBEs, or astral projection. During these experiences, people often report floating above their bodies, seeing themselves, and sometimes even traveling to other places. This phenomenon raises profound questions about whether consciousness is bound by the physical brain and body. Consciousness in simulation theory. If we consider the idea that our consciousness is separate from our physical body, and that the body is merely an interface or avatar, then it could align with the simulation hypothesis in an intriguing way. Consciousness as the user in the simulation. If the universe is a simulation, consciousness might be the player outside of the simulation, using the body as an interface or avatar to interact with the simulated world. Just like in a video game, your consciousness could be the real entity, and the body is a tool through which it experiences the game, the simulation. This could explain why some people feel like they leave their bodies during sleep, or in certain altered states, because the consciousness is something beyond the simulation's rules. Sleep and dreaming. When we sleep, some theories suggest that our consciousness may disengage from the body to explore different levels of reality or dimensions, like in dreams or OBEs. If we're in a simulation, it might be like our consciousness is temporarily logging off or moving to a different state. Dreams themselves could be a kind of sandbox within the simulation where consciousness interacts with different virtual environments.
Consciousness more than just brain activity. Quantum and theoretical physics approaches. Some scientists like Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have explored the idea that consciousness might be more than just a product of brain activity and could involve quantum processes. Their orchestrated objective reduction theory suggests that consciousness arises from quantum-level processes happening in microtubules within neurons. This could point to consciousness being tied into something deeper, possibly tapping into the fabric of reality itself, whether that's the underlying code of the simulation or a more fundamental layer of existence. Additionally, biocentrism, proposed by scientist Robert Lanza, suggests that consciousness creates reality, rather than the other way around. In this view, the universe is like a projection created by consciousness, aligning with the idea that consciousness might be the entity interacting with a simulated world, with reality shaped by the observer's awareness. Spiritual perspectives and the field. In many spiritual traditions, the body is seen as a temporary vessel for a soul or higher consciousness. Astral projection and lucid dreaming are often described as experiences where the soul or consciousness leaves the body and interacts with other planes or dimensions. These fields are sometimes referred to as the astral plane or collective consciousness, and they suggest that our waking reality is just one layer of existence. If we apply these ideas to simulation theory, the field, it could represent a deeper layer of reality, something like the underlying framework of the simulation. In this sense, consciousness might be able to tap into this field when the physical body is at rest or disconnected, like during sleep, or OBEs, allowing it to experience reality from a different perspective. Some people describe experiences of higher awareness or oneness with the universe in these states, which could be interpreted as connecting with the simulation's source code or the fundamental field. The simulation matrix reality implications for the simulation hypothesis. If consciousness is separate from the body, and the body is merely a vessel, then several questions arise that challenge our understanding of reality. Is the real world outside the simulation? If our consciousness is the real part of us, then perhaps the simulation is just one level of experience, and our true self exists outside the bounds of this reality. Just like we might log into a virtual world, our consciousness could be logging into this reality. Does the simulation serve a purpose? If our consciousness is temporarily interacting with this world through the body, it raises questions about the purpose of the simulation. Is it a learning experience, test, or something else entirely? What happens after death? In this model, death would be the point where the consciousness disconnects from the body, permanently, potentially returning to its true origin, whether that's the real world outside the simulation, a spiritual realm, or something else. Consciousness as a non-local phenomenon. Some theories suggest that consciousness may not be confined to the brain or body at all, but is rather a non-local phenomenon, meaning it exists everywhere and at all times, beyond the limits of space and time. This ties into ideas from quantum physics and Eastern philosophies, where consciousness is seen as a fundamental aspect of reality, more like a field that we tune into rather than something generated by the brain. In this view, our physical brain could be more like a receiver, picking up signals from this wider consciousness field. This resonates with the idea of out-of-body experiences, where the consciousness might temporarily disconnect from the brain's usual perception and interact with this wider field directly. Synchronicity and meaningful coincidences. Another fascinating concept is synchronicity, coined by Carl Jung, which refers to meaningful coincidences that seem too connected to be random. These events might suggest that there is a deeper structure or pattern to reality, perhaps even pointing to some underlying code or intelligence guiding events. People who explore simulation theory sometimes see synchronicities as potential clues, or moments where the simulation aligns in a strange, almost scripted way. Noticing these moments can be a way of tuning into something beyond the surface of everyday reality. Near-death experiences, NDEs. If you're interested in consciousness beyond the body, you might also want to look into the vast amount of research on near-death experiences, NDEs. People who have had NDEs often report being outside of their bodies, having heightened awareness, and experiencing a sense of oneness with the universe. Some interpretations of these experiences suggest that they could be glimpses into the true nature of consciousness, where the boundary between the physical and non-physical worlds fades. The holographic universe theory. This is another mind-bending theory proposed by physicist David Bohm and others, suggesting that the universe is like a hologram, where each part contains the whole. In this model, everything in the universe is interconnected, and reality as we know it is only a projection from a deeper layer of existence. Some have tied this theory to the simulation hypothesis, where our reality might be a projection or a manifestation of a more fundamental reality, similar to how a hologram is a three-dimensional image projected from two-dimensional data. The role of intuition and inner knowing. Sometimes, ideas or insights seem to come from a deeper place within, almost like they arrive in your mind fully formed. This could tie into the idea that your consciousness may be able to access a wider field of knowledge or awareness beyond the physical senses. These moments of intuition could be hints or glimpses of your consciousness interacting with a larger reality, much like how players in a simulation sometimes sense things beyond the immediate game environment. In summary, the idea that consciousness is separate from the body could fit into the simulation hypothesis in fascinating ways, especially if the body is seen as an avatar for consciousness to interact with a simulated reality. If consciousness exists independently of physical matter, It could act as the observer or user in the simulation, logging into the body and this world to experience, learn, or explore. IT also opens up a whole range of philosophical and metaphysical questions, like whether our experiences during sleep or out-of-body states could be moments when we interact with a deeper layer of reality, or even catch glimpses of what's outside the simulation. Point 1 Love Fiat Lux. Excitata Lux.
Samsara make ya born again, soul can done. Circle of life and the moon and the sun. Born again till you find the key. Break the chain, rise to infinity. Samsara make ya born again, soul can done. Circle of life and the moon and the sun. Born again till you find the key. Break the chain, rise to infinity. Karma describe, write your next play. Every action a seed where you bloom one day. Not for punishment, but for wisdom you learn. The fire of life it continue to burn. Queen or beggar, priest or slave. Lesson of the teacher from cradle to grave. Each life a mirror reflect who you are, till you break through illusion and see the star. Maya illusion, the veil of disguise. Truth hidden